Hello, welcome to our May membership meeting. I'm Rita Verde, your Arts Consortium president. This afternoon, I would like to begin our meeting by inviting you to become an official member of our Arts Consortium if you aren't already. If you are an official member, would you please invite any of your artist friends that you feel would like to become a member? Thank you so much for those members who have renewed their membership, and I'd like to do a special shout out to those that are new members. They will be listed also on our newsletter. Thank you guys for joining. This meeting, we have our Executive Director's report that will be given to you by Ampelio Mejia. He will give you our First Friday recap, the First Friday activity and events that have been absolutely awesome. It's great getting to know more details about the artists that we feature. So thank you, Ampelio, for that.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Ampelio Mejia Perez. I am the Executive Director of the Arts Consortium. We are Tulare County's Arts Council, and we're very excited to have you here. Thank you very much for all of your support. Thank you for your likes and subscribes. Thank you guys for your membership renewals, and thank you to those of you who are new to our membership. For First Friday, we had the My Voice Media Center's artists, and we had a little interview with them on video, and we were able to kind of hang out and say what's up. So that was quite nice. I hope you guys enjoyed the summary of it. And if you guys or anyone you know could use one of our comfort kits that are coming through courtesy of the My Voice Media Center, then please let us know, and we'll do our best to make those available to them. For our weekly call-in list also, if you or anyone you know is in need of some kind of support, or if you need somebody to just call and say hello and make sure that folks stay in a good mood, then let us know. We want to thank Tony Best Baskets for a donation of gourds for our My Voice Media Center project. So now we have some 3D projects for folks to work with. That's very exciting. I want to thank everybody who submitted an entry into our 2020 Watermark Cover Contest. Your submissions will remain in our contest, and we will announce the winner at our June membership meeting. So I look forward to all your new submissions. Thank you very much for coming to the meeting.
Next will be a presentation by artist David Daniels, which I know that you will enjoy. He's given presentations before in the past, and we've always wanted to videotape his presentations, and now we have that opportunity to do that.
Hi everybody, good evening. Welcome to the May membership meeting with the Arts Consortium. My name is Dave Daniels. I'm the Vice President here. And I'm going to be talking to you about what I do as an artist and a woodworker. I've shared a little bit about some of the marketing that I've done around festivals, in particular Taste the Arts. Today I figured I'd share you a little bit of my actual work, the process involved, what it took for me to get a business rolling. And these are things that I wish I knew ahead of time, and I think they'll be helpful for you guys. Okay, so since you're here in the membership meeting, we will be giving away today what I call a bar-mate cutting board, small cutting board made of cherry with an accent of black walnut and purple heart, ready for all your quick little needs. Ask a question in the comments below, and if I answer it, you'll be entered into a drawing, and we'll pick a winner at the end. So here we go. This is kind of the thing with art, is that it's hard to put a monetary value on something, right? It's kind of like the anti-artist. Like, you have to think of it as a business, but you're like, no, it's art, man. And that's fine if you don't want to make a living as an artist. Your art is a business. If you want to make a living at it or want to make money at it, you have to know how much you're bringing in, how much things cost, also how much time you spend making something, so that you know if somebody contacts you, hey, I want this done, you'll know it'll take you that much time, and this is what your hours are worth. You have to put yourself out there. People have to see it if you want to sell it. And then, I mean, if you're an artist and you don't want to sell your stuff, it's totally fine. But if you want to make a living at it, you have to put them out there in a variety of ways and see what sticks and in what environments they stick. One of the things I found is that my stuff does pretty well at like art fairs. First of all, they're functional pieces that can be used, which make it easier for somebody to buy. But also they're aesthetically pleasing. And so I found the art crowd is my crowd. And so that does really well. I have done home shows. My stuff did not sell at all. I've done kind of like these rustic, antique, crafty kind of fairs. My stuff doesn't do great there. It's just one of these things where you have to find where your aesthetic fits and try it out. And you have to invest a certain dollar amount and time amount, knowing that you're going to test these things out. It might not pay off. And in the end, it's an investment in your brand and your business. And so it's not necessarily a loss, even if it is a negative income outcome. So you still learn something from that. So you got to try things, see what gets attention, see what clicks, and keep doing what works. And remember that you're always going to want to keep trying new things, because you might find the next big thing that works and that catches people's eye. I had been woodworking since high school, and I always enjoyed it, and took it up again, and it was something I needed to do to burn off steam. So I'd do it at home for a couple hours, and the more I did it, the more I enjoyed it. And eventually I started selling some of my pieces to pay for my materials and to maybe upgrade my tools. And eventually it became a little side hustle for me. So on top of my job, which I was a full-time teacher at the time. On top of that, I'd come home, work in the evenings, found a spot at the farmer's market here in Visalia, and so I would sell my cutting boards there. And it eventually grew more and more, so I was actually making some money. I figured, hey, this is something that I could potentially do more than just a hobby. Getting a financial software. So QuickBooks is what I use, and that's what I keep track of all my expenses and income. I had known for a couple years I wanted to do something more with woodworking in terms of a business, so I'd always had a fuzzy idea of what I thought I could do in terms of finances. And my wife and I sat down and we hammered something out, something that we thought was reasonable to do. So the two of us together worked on it. And it's a little bit of like conversations here and there over time, and then finally just like setting an appointment. Hey, we're going to talk about this and figure it out. And so we figured it out in an afternoon, and kept turning back to it if we needed to. Something that actually kind of made me very concerned about making a jump was healthcare and retirement. I was talking to other entrepreneurs and business people, and I was actually really surprised to find that these guys who've been self-employed their whole lives, like one guy's another woodworker, and he had been self-employed for 40 years, never had health insurance his whole life. So that was always like the big question, like what would we do for health insurance? So we were giving that up basically, and we found pretty poor quality insurance, but it's something we could afford, and had us covered in case of an emergency basically. So that's also where like our savings through that year have come into play, where we figured if we had something that was major, our insurance will cover a very small amount of it, and we've got that savings as a backup. Before I quit my job, my full-time job, I wanted to make sure that I was set up. I had a shop that was going to work for me. I didn't want to have any huge upfront costs, like as soon as I was on my own, basically. So over the course of that year, that's when I upgraded some equipment. So that's where having this other job while I was building this shop was really helpful. So I didn't have to carve out, 10 grand in tools and still pay my bills. The other thing is I wanted to make sure that I didn't have any overhead or large overhead. And so for me, that meant having a shop at my home. So now I work from home. So in those months where things are tight, I'm not worried about losing my location because I'm not paying an additional rent. So that's a huge thing for me, and definitely something I would suggest for anybody is to keep your overhead low. Then it's a matter of like securing those leads, following up on those leads, and hitting a couple of those big kind of jobs. And for me, I had a huge wholesale order for a winery up in Napa and a big dining room table commission. So those two projects I was able to knock out within that first month, and that gave me a nice cushion for the next couple of months. Actually, those two jobs covered my budget for the next, like 3-4 months. So it gave me time to secure some other leads. Thankfully, I was already selling out at the farmer's market, and so I had a small customer base established there locally. That gave me the opportunity to try things, to see what sold, see what didn't sell. But also, I think more importantly, gave me a time to hone my craft, to get better at what I was doing, to make my things more interesting, more unique. As I improved, so did my sales. The prices I could charge for my pieces were allowed to increase. And so that was a really great opportunity. And then it was a matter of putting an online presence together and being a little more consistent with that. My business is set up right now as a sole proprietorship. That means that basically any money that the business makes is technically money that I make. It's the easiest type of business to set up and the easiest type of business to close. Your tax ID for the business is your social security number. Basically, anything that comes in through the business, you're going to report as income on your taxes. Realize that the money that you take in is not all your money. So let's say after your materials cost, you sold a product and you have now $1,000 that you have in your pocket. You don't get to keep all of that $1,000. You have to pay a portion of that to your state and federal income tax, and it's a significant chunk. This is where you really need to do your research ahead of time. You get hit with what's called the self-employment tax. Basically, that's that portion of your income that if you had a normal traditional job, you would pay into. Part of that would go to federal and state income tax, but also part of that goes to Social Security. You can look at those percentages. But basically, when you get a check for $1,000 from somebody who purchased an item from you, you have to pay sales tax. And so right now, any of the sales that are done in California, I pay California sales tax on. It's a little bit different when you start shipping things out of state. And those laws change from time to time, so you'll need to keep up to date on that, especially for your product, because it could be different. So as I take in sales, I'm charging 8.5%, whatever it is, in sales tax. That money goes into my bank account. The big thing there is to make sure you put that aside and you don't spend it. A lot of people get into trouble. They find out, I've got $1,000 in sales tax that I need to pay, and I don't have that money in my bank account. That is going to be hard to come up with all of a sudden, so you need to plan on that. So for me, I have a business license with the city of Visalia, and it's a home occupancy or home run business because I work from my home. So there's a small fee, annual fee there. It's not much. I want to say it's probably like $70 a year, and you pay that with the city. Your fictitious business name is done with the county. And so that I had to purchase ad space in a newspaper. So I found the cheapest one in the county to do. And so you have to post that there so you can technically legally use whatever business name you want. If it's your own personal name, you don't have to do that. But since I have Absolution Woodworks and not my own name, that's what I went with there. Yeah, so there you go. Detailed business things that suck, that nobody talks about, but are extremely important. There's a really helpful book that I'd recommend for anybody who's interested in kind of leaving the traditional employment situation and pursuing some of your own ideas. It's called When to Jump. It tells the stories of several entrepreneurs who have taken a jump, and the book kind of encourages you on these different steps. So some of them were like people who were just planning. Some of them were people who were years into a jump. People who had crashed and burned and figured something else out. It was just a really helpful, encouraging book that I read, and that kind of laid the groundwork. So definitely recommend that. Just assume that you don't know everything, and to not be afraid to ask. Lots of times people will say things and you won't know what it means. ask them. That's the way we learn. So you'll find if you're out there as a small business that you'll run into these people and you'll discuss things that you do. And they're also in there experiencing things. So that's the easiest way. The internet is really hard sometimes to figure out what you need, and it can be really like legal jargon that's tough to filter through. So talk with other business owners, and that'll be your biggest help. If you want to build your own brand, make sure that what you're doing is of an outstanding quality. If your stuff is second rate, I mean, if there's somebody else out there who's doing it better, then they're probably going to go there. And the other part of that is being consistent. So if somebody really likes something that you've done today, and they come back to you in 3 months wanting something else, and it's not at the same caliber, they're probably not going to come back to you. To me, one of my biggest philosophies in life is that no amount of money is worth your fulfillment and satisfaction in life. If you're making $500,000 a year and you're miserable, like, what's the point of having all that money? I'd rather be living in a tent and be perfectly content than loaded and miserable. And I think if you are fulfilled and you find that the work that you're doing, whatever that is meaningful, then you are successful. And if you've managed to make it profitable, then you are crushing it. Congratulations, you have everything you need in life. I do a combination of like commissioned work and work that I do based on my own. So people come with projects that they have in mind, and I'll do them if it's something I'm able to do. And then I sell my other work that I do for myself. So it's a nice balance for both. One project I did, it was something that pays the bills, were like there was just plywood shapes for seats that were going to be reupholstered. It's not glamorous at all, it's not artistic, but it was a job that pays the bills. So I think, especially now, those kind of jobs are jobs that pay the bills. Things like bookshelves are not super inspiring, but people need bookshelves. And so those kind of jobs are what will keep you going. For me, it's definitely a balance of both of those things. And being willing to do those projects that maybe aren't inspiring, but you can put some money in the bank with. Primarily what I do, the thing that I sell the most of, are cutting boards, and specifically end grain cutting boards. So boards where the cutting surface actually reveals the growth rings of the tree. And so what I'll do now is I'll walk you through the process for how I do that. This isn't a process that I invented, or, thousands of people have done this before, and so I kind of put my own design spin on it. The board that I'll be showing you is what I call a 5-tone board. It uses 5 different types of woods, and I'll walk you through it. So the first step is where you take these large boards of lumber, anywhere from like 7 to 12 feet long, and you cut them into more manageable sizes. Once they're cut down into size, usually 4-foot boards, for this type of project, I'll run them to the planer. Here, you're getting every single board to the same thickness. This will make it easier to work with in the process. Once everything is planed to the same thickness, I'll take them to the table saw. There, I am slicing them down so that they're the same. So I'm slicing them down into squares. So I can then turn them around, and I'll show you that in a second here. So all of these boards are sliced until I have enough to make the right width of board that I want. So after the table saw, I'm left with these strips of wood, and right now I'm going to arrange them based on their grain and color. And so this is where kind of the artistic eye comes in, but also there's a little bit of, I guess, science, for lack of a better word. Wood will move, it'll expand and contract seasonally and with moisture in the air. So what I'm doing here is I'm turning the grains around in different directions so that they're not moving, stretching, and contracting all in the same direction. So this will keep your board stable when you're totally done, so you'll resist things like cracks in the future. If you're going to put them all in the same direction, then you'd end up with a bowed board, and then once you're cutting on it and stressed with seasonal changes, it could end up cracking. So that's what I'm doing here. So I'm keeping in mind the aesthetics as well as some of those elements. Once I've got it arranged, I'll take it over to my glue station, glue them up, and I've marked the pieces with chalk on top so I know that I've got it in the order that I arranged. And here we go, I'm using pipe clamps, lock it real tight. This is the first glue up of 2 glue ups for this board. Usually I'll glue something, come back the next day, so it's had time to dry. Pull those out of the clamps, they get run through the planer again. So that takes all the glue and nasty stuff, cleans it up, and gives you a nice smooth, uniform surface. And from there, I take it back to the table saw and I cross cut those pieces. And this is where you start to see the in-grain board form. So you can see on my little workbench there, starting to arrange them. And you can see, oh, that's starting to look like one of his cutting boards. All right. After this process, I'll run each of those individual pieces through the drum sander. There tend to be a little bit of blemishes from the planer and from the table saw. So this just helps keep everything nice and square so that when I glue it up, we don't have any gaps or issues. Now I'm getting ready for the second glue up, and I'm arranging them again, keeping in mind the grain orientation. So you'll see me flip each of those over. And what I'm doing there is I'm mirroring the grain of the woods. It keeps it nice and sturdy when it's finally glued up and finished, keeping in mind how the grain interacts with all the different colors and things like that. So I'm creating the design there. Then it's a matter of gluing it up again. This is very similar to the first time. You just have kind of a different shape that you're gluing. And I'm keeping in mind, I'm following my line there so that I don't lose my design. Same deal, it's dried overnight. These go back through the planer. That again makes it clean, cleans off all the extra glue, makes it uniform. From here, it goes to the table saw. I'll trim off those edges, make them the proper width. After I'm done with that stage, it goes back through the drum sander so it's nice and flat and smooth. Next, I'll put some rounded edges on the board there just for a nice feel and a nice look. I'll put in some handles with a router. The most tedious part, this is sanding. So I probably spend, I don't know, half the whole time sanding. And you see it here in a time lapse, but lots of sanding. After I'm done with the first round of sanding, spray it with water, and that raises the grain. If you're gonna skip this step, once you got the board home and you used it, you washed it, all that smooth surface will become nice and rough surface. So I find that if you raise the grain first, and then I'll go back and sand it again, that just keeps that from happening. So even though you've used it and washed it, it still is a nice smooth surface. So as I said, after you've sprayed it down and it's dried, it's very rough. It's like you didn't sand it at all. You go back, sand it again to the final grit. For me, that's 220. All right, after the final sanding, we're in the home stretch. It gets an oil bath. This is just mineral oil. I have it in a tub, dunk it in the tub. You'll see this is where it really comes to life. When all that hard work starts to pay off, you see the final product. You're like, oh, dude, this is what we've been waiting for. Looks amazing. So all the colors in the woods are amplified, and it becomes way more striking visually. And you're like, hey, this has all been worth it. The last step is a combination of beeswax and mineral oil that's rubbed into the surface. The oil from the first bath is kind of soaked into the grain of the wood, and then the beeswax helps give it a nice final smooth finish and just a little bit more protection from the water. What I'll do next is I'll photograph it and list it online if I'm going to sell it online, or bring it with me to farmers market. And most of these photos are seen on Instagram or Facebook, and hopefully they'll go home to somebody who will either use it or display it. Either one is fine. And that's my process for making an end grain cutting board. I have an actual storefront on my website, absolutionwoodworks.com, where you can see Not all of my products, but a handful of them there, and you can purchase them there, and they'll ship anywhere in the country. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Absolution Co. Or if you search Absolution Woodworks, you'll find me there. My website is absolutionwoodworks.com. And once the world opens up again, you'll find me out at the farmers market on Saturdays on the corner of Caldwell and Mooney. To find out about where I'll be, the best spot to find me is, again, those social medias. The Arts Consortium is all about helping artists. So if you guys have questions or comments, you can put them down in the comments below of the video, or on Facebook, wherever you're seeing this, put the comments down there. We'll see them and we'll try and respond to them. You can also contact me directly through Instagram or Facebook. Those are, I'm accessible there. I run those myself. And so if you have questions for me specifically, shout out and I'll help you out. Come on out to our First Friday Art Walks, the first Friday of every month. Again, my name is Dave. My business is Absolution Woodworks. You'll find me here in Visalia and at the Arts Consortium. I'm the vice president here. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'm totally willing to help you with all those details. And we'll see you soon. Take care.
Announcements. As you well know, and you have that on the agenda that was sent out to you, please submit those to us by sending them to hello@artsconsortium.org, and we will make sure to get those out for you. I'd like to announce to you that our next meeting will be on Monday, June the 8th. Please stay safe and stay healthy, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.